Former President Trump's 2020 presidential campaign reportedly paid a research firm to find evidence of voter fraud, but kept the findings secret when no proof was found. The Washington Post reports the campaign never released the final results after the research team disputed many of Trump's theories and could not find any evidence that he actually won the election. That is according to 4 people familiar with the matter. The Post writes the campaign paid researchers from the Berkeley Research Group, the people said, to study 2020 election results in 6 states, looking for fraud and irregularities to highlight in public and in the courts. Among the areas examined were voter machine malfunctions, instances of dead people voting, and any evidence that could help Trump show he won, the people said. The research was done in the final weeks of 2020 before Trump supporters stormed the Capitol on January 6th. Former President Trump continues to push the big lie today, despite the commissioned research saying otherwise. In a statement, a Berkeley Research Group spokesperson said, quote, "Our experts provide independent and objective factual analysis. And as a matter of firm policy, we do not comment on client engagements or on privileged and confidential matters." NBC News also reached out to the Trump campaign for comment. A spokesman responded with a statement attacking Joe Biden and again suggesting Trump won the election. Since the election that he lost, multiple courts and swing states have confirmed former President Trump did not win. Let's bring in former U.S. Attorney Joyce Vance. She's an MSNBC legal analyst. And Joyce, what do you think is important about this news as it pertains to the big lie and legal efforts to prove that Donald Trump was trying to overturn the election and knew he lost?
It's important evidence for the special counsel to have, Mika, because when you're talking, and we've talked for months now about the fact that prosecutors will have to prove that the former president knew he had lost, but nonetheless carried out the conduct connected with January 6th and his effort to prevent certification of the vote. So the way prosecutors do that isn't just with one piece of evidence. What you really need is layer upon layer of circumstantial evidence. You don't have a confession from Trump that he knew. So you achieve your proof as a prosecutor by showing through multiple people and multiple events that there's strong indication that he knew. At this point where you have an outside independent firm that's highly regarded confirming that there was no fraud involved in the election, if prosecutors can prove that that was communicated to Trump, it's really the nail in the coffin.
So let's talk also on January 6th, Joyce, some news that the special counsel Jack Smith issued a subpoena to former Vice President Mike Pence. Pence's team is not committed one way or the other whether they're going to comply. There's a sense, though, they may not. So if that's the case, do they have any ability to not comply with the subpoena from special counsel? And just speak to us as to what an escalation in some ways this is, that if this special counsel clearly is a sign they're not just focused on Mar-a-Lago documents, they're focused on January 6th and the most innermost members of Trump's circle.
You know, we have gotten so used to the former president getting away with running circles around the legal system that people might forget that compliance with the federal grand jury subpoena is not optional, right? Mike Pence will show up. He will testify. Trump's attorneys very likely will try to litigate executive privilege claims. They won't work because executive privilege is meant to protect communications a president has as part of his governance of the country. It's not meant to protect crimes. It's not meant to protect presidents who are trying to hold on to power after they've lost an election. And so Pence will testify. And as you point out, it really is an escalation in the special counsel's tactics. It suggests that he is at the point where he needs to talk to the essential witness. Mike Pence, the only person other than Trump who knows exactly what happened on both sides of that phone call on the morning of January 6th.
Coming up, we'll talk with the Oscar-nominated director of one of the best documentaries of the year. The film is called A House Made of Splinters, and it's a powerful project that took Sundance by storm. That conversation is just ahead on Morning Joe.